it's really whatever's easier or more comfortable to you personally. So yeah, if you would like to sit beside Sensei when he is getting up to come to give his talk, you can come down to the Geji, listen to it, and then go with the kids to class.
Oh, you're a Dharma school teacher too?
Yeah.
Wow.
So.
Two of the three, but yeah, we have a greater and and a kindergarten. So
Yeah.
it takes a special set of teaching skills to navigate that age group.
Water.
Okay.
It'll be up here in case you.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, I brought mine too.
Okay. That's. Just wanted to make sure you can welcome to use your own, but I also like to make sure.
I would not be sure when I have to.
Getting up and starting a Dharma talk somewhere. We usually start at 10:05 sharp. San Diego.
San Diego and a lot of it.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. I guess we wait.
Okay, thank you. So please put your hands together and take deep breaths as we listen to the ringing of the Kansho, the calling bell. Good morning, everyone. It's so wonderful to see you all this morning on this beautiful Sunday morning. And thank you for joining us for our Etaikyo service and All Life Forms Memorial Service. We have such a wonderful service planned for you this morning with Reverend Hōkai Smitty Smith officiating this morning and Co-Officiant Reverend Laverne Shido Imori. We also are welcoming Reverend Henry Torio Adams from the San Mateo Buddhist Temple as our guest speaker. So thank you so much in advance for coming down. I'm glad you were able to make it here safely this morning, especially with those heavy storms that we've seen have hit Northern California and all the way up the West Coast. So Etaikyo, also referred to as a perpetual memorial service, is a memorial service in which we honor all the members of the Sangha and our Dharma friends who have passed away, whether known or unknown, who dedicated themselves for the spiritual welfare of the temple so that we may continue to share the Dharma. At this time, the Dharma School 5th through 8th grade class will now present the fruit and floral offering as well as the box of all life form memorial forms.
Please turn to page 21 of the service book that can be found in the back pocket of the seat in front of you. We will be chanting Sanbujo, after which Reverend Smitty will be chanting the Hyobyakumon, the intention of the service. And then we will be chanting, as a Sangha, the Juseige found on page 35.
This is Sanbujo, or the three respectful callings. Bujo, Mida, Nyorai, Jo Gasho. We gather here today to observe Etaikyo. Etaikyo literally means perpetually reading or chanting Buddhist sutras. E means eternal. It is composed of the characters for a river with many tributaries that flow on and on. Tai refers to a period of time or generations. Kyo means sutras or the words of the Buddha. Thus, we may consider the meaning of Etaikyo to be eternally chanting the sutras on behalf of and in gratitude for our loved ones for generations and generations to come. Etaikyo can be interpreted as the Buddhist temple of San Diego's promise to propagate the Buddha Dharma in perpetuity. Through this Etaikyo, this river with many tributaries, flow all the sentient beings who have brought the Dharma to us in the past, all the sentient beings who are here sharing the Dharma in the present, and all the sentient beings who will hear the Dharma at the Buddhist temple of San Diego on and on into the future. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda, 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 Namanda. We will now chant Juseige, found on page 35 of your service book. Gagoncho segan hishimu jodo shigan fumanzo ga o muryoko fu i dai se shu fu sai shobin gu se fu jo shoga ga shi jo bundo myo sho cho jippo ku kyo mi shomon se fu jo shoga ryoku jin shonen jo e shu bongyo shigu mujo do isho tenin shi jinriki endai ko husho musai do shoujo san kumyo kosai shuyakunan kai hichi egen meshi kon mo an he soku sho akudo tsudaten zen shudon koso jo manzok ioro jippo nichigaten shujuki tenko on pugen ishukai hozo kose kudoku ho jo dai shuchu seppo shishiku kuyo isai bud gusoku shutoku hon gan e shinjo man toku isan gai o nyobuten mugechi tsudaten mi husho gangaku erik toshi sai shoson shiganya koka daisen okando koku shotenin to chin myoke Namandabu Gassho, Namandab, 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 Namandab.
We will now have the All Life Forms Acknowledgement by Reverend Smitty.
Good morning. Today, we'd like to acknowledge the impermanence of all beings and the influence of all lives upon our own lives. We're not separate. We're not isolated. We are, instead, fully connected with all life. It's through this understanding of impermanence and interdependence that we recognize how truly special each and every life is. Today, during our Etaikyo service, we gather as a Sangha to acknowledge all beings who have touched our lives and who have often touched our hearts. I would like to read the names and or descriptions of beings that have been submitted for this All Life Form Memorial. Adre, a wet baby. Gunner, Vassal, Kona, and Coconut, I miss and love you. Watermelon, trees and flowers. Cinderella, thank you for being so fluffy. We miss your amusing squeaks. Mr. Pickles, my fish. Maggie Smith, who was Professor McGonagall. Teddy, my hamster, who was very fuzzy and loved apples. Trees that died in fires. Lizzie, my lizard, who loved kale with calcium sprinkled on top. Hamsters. Mr. Pickles, you were the best goldfish ever. Sashi, who passed away before I was born. I've seen pictures of him and my parents talk about him. Marshmallow. Reverend Dr. Sagan Yamaoka. Oso. Saya and Yuki. I miss playing with my dogs and petting their soft fur. Teddy, I miss you and love you. Sakura, you are a wonderful cat. Masarap, you were such a good cat, we all miss you. Roxy, I will always remember you. Auntie's cat who played with me. Hammy the dwarf hamster who warmed our hands and hearts. Morris, Punky Pound Puppy, thank you for being in our lives. James Earl Jones, who told Luke Skywalker, I am your father. Bob the fish, times about 100. My dad's apple tree. Muffin the cat. My parents, Fred and Ritsu Nebeta. The jacaranda tree, you help me frame each morning. We acknowledge these beings who have left this Saha world and have crossed over to the other shore. We also acknowledge the lives of the countless and often unnamed others who have touched, enriched, or sustained our lives, whether they were humans, mammals, fish, birds, reptiles, amphibians, insects, microbes, fungus, trees, plants, flowers, or even weeds. May we always be mindful of how precious life is, how interconnected and impermanent life is, and how much we depend on these other lives in order to live our own lives. In deep and heartfelt gratitude, please join me in Gassho as we say, Namo Amida Butsu, Namandab, 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 Namandab.
Thank you, Reverend Smitty. So at this time, I would like to invite a representative from each of our various temple organizations to offer incense. So starting with the Dharma school staff. And our Dharma school students. Sangha teens. Junior Young Buddhist Association. Adult Buddhist Association. Our Buddhist Women's Association. Buddhist Temple of San Diego, Taiko. Komon. And the Buddhist Temple of San Diego. Thank you. I would like to invite Reverend Smitty to introduce our Etaikyo service and all life forms memorial service guest speaker for our Dharma school message.
Well, as you might have heard, today our guest speaker for the Etaikyo service is Reverend Henry Torio Adams, who has been serving as the resident minister of San Mateo Buddhist Temple since 2013. And Adams Sensei grew up in Buffalo, but not Buffalo, New York, Buffalo, Minnesota. Who knew? I don't think they have a football team there in the NFL, but the town still exists. He discovered his interest in Buddhism during a one-year high school exchange program in Chennai, India, and as an undergraduate student at St. Olaf College, he began his study of Buddhist scriptures and first considered pursuing the path to ministry. After he received an MA in Buddhist Studies from the University of Michigan, go Blue, he moved to Miyazaki, Japan, where he worked for the Miyazaki prefectural government. And in 2007, Reverend Adams moved to Kyoto to pursue his ministerial studies at Butsu. So upon graduating from the seminary, he began serving as a minister in the Buddhist Churches of America in 2010. So prior to San Mateo Temple, Adams Sensei served at the Oxnard Buddhist Temple and also oversaw the Buddhist Church of Santa Barbara, the San Luis Obispo Buddhist Temple, and the Guadalupe Buddhist Church. And he also had served as the supervising minister for the Buddhist Church of San Francisco from 2020 to 2023. Sensei's married to Shoko, and they have 3 sons. And I learned today their ages are 13, 10, and 5, so some youngsters there. And in recent years, Sensei has been enjoying sharing his lifelong love of bicycling with his wife and sons, and he says he spends much of his free time fixing bicycles. Now, I first met Sensei when he was at Oxnard Buddhist Temple, so I don't know, we groupies of other ministers, something like that. Anyways, I've sort of followed him around as far as his progression and enjoy listening to his Dharma talks. And I have to confess that as I was preparing for Tokudo ordination, I preferred chanting along with the Shoshinge video that had been produced by BCA quite a few years ago. And Adams Sensei chants the third wasan. So in my head is forever going to be stuck Adams Sensei's voice chanting along with Gedatsu no, as he chants along with that. I'm sure he had no idea that his voice was in my head very often. So I'd like to introduce with today's Dharma School message, Reverend Adams.
Namanda Butsu, Namanda Butsu, Namanda Butsu, Namanda Butsu, Namanda Butsu. Please join me in Gassho. Gassho onegaishimasu. Let us hear the words of Amida Buddha spoken at the time when he was aspiring to realize the path to true awakening. He said, "My land shall be like nirvana, being supreme and unequaled. Out of compassion and pity, I will bring all to emancipation. Watashi no kokudo wa nehan no sekai sono mono no you ni, narabu mono naku sugureta kuni to shiyou. Watashi wa awaremi kokoro o motte, subete no hitobito o sukuitai to. Namanda Butsu, Namanda
Namanda,
Butsu,
Namanda, Namanda, Namanda.
Butsu, Namanda Butsu, Namanda Butsu. Good morning, everyone. Minasan, ohayou gozaimasu. Much gratitude to all of you for welcoming here for this very important and meaningful Etaikyo service and your All Lives memorial service. And much gratitude to Reverend Smitty for her very generous introduction. I'm going to have to work on getting that YouTube video taken down, I think. But glad to be of assistance to Reverend Smitty. I have all the ministers. I really just feel sorry that it's my voice that's there in her mind when she chants. But it is truly the voice of the Buddha that we hear when we chant these words, and in gratitude for Shinran Shonin's wisdom. So this All Lives Memorial service, it was truly inspiring for me to hear the names of so many different kinds of lives who had supported and sustained the Sangha, from beloved pets to the trees that bring us wonderful oxygen to wonderful Dharma teachers like Reverend Seigen Yamoka, who also has inspired and guided me on my path. These services are truly meaningful as we remember and reflect upon the lives of so many who enable us to live. And they're also a way for us to deepen our compassion, both our experience of the compassion that we receive and the compassion that we share with others. If we think about compassion, our wise teacher Nagarjuna said that there are three kinds of compassion. One of those is called small compassion. Small compassion is the easiest. We say it's the easiest to practice small compassion because small compassion is for people that we feel like are like us in some way, somebody who we feel especially close to. So I have a question for the Dharma school students. Who's somebody that's easy for you to be nice to? Who is it easy for you to be nice to? Is there anybody who's easy to be nice to? You know, maybe like your best friend, maybe one of your pets. If anybody has pets, it's easy to be nice to your pets, right? Right? Maybe is it easy to be nice to your parents? Right? Hope it's easy to be nice to your parents, or maybe grandma and grandpa. You know, maybe if some of you who are maybe a little bit older, maybe if you have a new romantic interest, a new boyfriend or girlfriend, you might feel it's easy to be nice to them, to be patient with them. We kind of overlook maybe some of the flaws or the shortcomings. Doesn't bother us at all at first, right? I was talking with one of our Sangha members yesterday evening, and they shared with me, I feel a little embarrassed to say this, but I feel more compassion for the pets than my human members of my family sometimes. Feel sadder when I remember my cat than I do when I remember my parents, Is that wrong? Is that bad? Not necessarily, right? The cats and pets, they're so easy. They bring us so much joy, so much kindness. They have more of a sense of unconditional affection. And so, these are the relationships that are the easiest because we see ourselves in these people or these animals, these life forms. It's called small compassion because it's the easiest to be compassionate for these people and these pets and these life forms that we're the closest to. The next level is what we call medium compassion. Medium compassion is based on our insight into the truth of the Buddha's teachings. It's easy to be nice to people if we understand why we should be nice to them. Maybe we don't feel a special connection with them, but we understand that, in order for us to have an enjoyable life, we should be kind and compassionate to others. Yesterday I traveled down from San Mateo on an airplane, and so, getting on the plane, I thought, we're sitting very close together. It's the middle of cold and flu season, and even though I don't like to wear a mask, I went ahead and put on my mask, thinking not so much that, I don't want to get those people's germs, but had a little bit of a kind of a scratchy throat lately. So, since we're going to be sitting right next to each other for, this about 2 hours on the plane, I'll put on my mask, right? These are things that I think, a few years ago, we were always wearing masks all the time, but even now, as we get into cold and flu season sometimes, we do these little things to be kind to people. So think about somebody who you are kind to, who you're nice to, because you understand. Maybe you don't know that person, but you think you should be nice to this person. Maybe it's helping someone out in the grocery store, or, a neighbor, someone you see on the street drops something and you pick it up and say, oh, you dropped your phone, or whatever item it might be. So this is called the medium compassion, right? And it's not so difficult for us to feel medium compassion, but it takes a little bit of effort. We kind of have to go out of our way a little bit, right? But we understand, we recognize some aspect of ourselves in the people for whom we feel small compassion. And for medium compassion, we have some ideas. We know why we should do it, because we've been taught in Dharma school or at home that we should do this. Now there's great compassion, the big compassion. This is compassion that has no preconditions, no requirements. It's compassion for everybody, and it's not based on our personal relationship. It's not based on our idea of, we should be nice to this person. It extends to everybody. It's completely limitless. Extends to everybody, even people who are difficult for us. So is there anybody you can think of who's difficult to be nice to? It's difficult to be patient to. That was fast, right? Right? That person, sometimes, it's easy to be nice to. That can be hard to think of, but hard to be nice to. Boom. That pops right into our minds, right? Great compassion is compassion for that person in that moment. We say that's the compassion of the Buddha. Now, it's very difficult, Think about people who say something or do something that hurts your feelings or frustrates you. Maybe those people on TV, you turn on the TV and you see them talking in instance, like, oh, those people are the object of great compassion. For me, mosquitoes, right? Normally, a lot of bugs, insects. I try to be a good Buddhist. If we have some, a beetle or some harmless insect comes into the house, I'll kind of carefully gather it up. Spiders, I think spiders are just fine, but you'd be happier outside. So I let them outside. But I hear that mosquito bzzz, right? No hesitation, right? So it's difficult for me to have compassion for all living beings, right? How about the animals that we eat, right? Delicious hamburger, carnitas, the food that we love to eat, right? It nourishes us, it keeps us alive. In the Jodo Shinshu tradition, we receive the lives of all beings, but, are we able to awaken gratitude and appreciation at every meal for the food that we eat? Even if that hamburger isn't cooked just right, can we receive it and eat it with gratitude, right? So for people like me who aren't enlightened yet, it's difficult to practice this great, great compassion, right? Sometimes I find it's even hard to practice small compassion, right? Do you ever get into arguments with your best friend, right? How about your parents? Do you ever get frustrated with mom and dad or your parents? Yeah, right? Do you ever lose patience with your children as parents, right? Yeah, right? So Shinran Shonin, he writes, lacking even small love and small compassion, I cannot hope to benefit sentient beings. Were it not for the ship of Amida's vow, how could I cross the ocean of painful existence? So Shinran Shonin recognized in himself that he was not even able to have small love and small compassion. And when I hear these words of Shinran Shonin, I think, that's like me. That's like me. And so Shinran Shonin, he points us to the great compassion of the Buddha, this compassion that enables us to, even if we don't have this boundless heart of patience and generosity for ourselves, the Buddha inspires us, it shows us the way to live, guided by great compassion. And so Shinran Shonin says, were it not for the Buddha's vow, it's like a ship that carries me along, carries me across the ocean. I just entrust myself to the Buddha's compassion, and it carries me along on my journey. So there are wonderful examples of people who have lived deeply in the Nembutsu. One of the former ministers here, Reverend Yanagihara, often wrote about the Myokonin, these marvelous people of the Nembutsu. And one of my favorite examples of a person who really embodied this compassionate life of the Nembutsu is a woman named Okaru. Now, Okaru lived in the end of the Edo period, so the kind of early 1800s. She lived on a tiny island called Mutsure in Yamaguchi Prefecture. So as a young woman, she was known for having a very feisty personality. She was very, strong opinions. She wouldn't hesitate to say what she said. She wasn't, very, submissive and mild and maybe what was expected of girls in her time. And so she would often get into fights with the boys in the neighborhood. And so the boys all got together and they made an agreement when they were young. They said, we're never going to marry Okaru. None of us. We're promised, none of us are going to marry Okaru. Make a deal. And they all kind of shook on it. And they said, okay. And so she had a really hard time getting married, right? And so in that age, women would get married very young. And so for her, she kind of struggled, but by the age of 19, which in that time was, getting kind of older to match up, especially in that community, she was finally able to find a husband. And at first, she was so happy because she felt, finally somebody will accept me for who I am. Finally someone will appreciate me just as I am. But her husband wound up traveling more and more for business. He would go more often, and when he went away, he would stay away longer. He would be longer and longer. And the person that she was the closest to, for whom she wanted to have the most compassion and the most kindness, was the person who was starting to drive her nuts and make her frustrated. She was lonely, she was irritated, she got so angry, and when her husband would come back, she would have this resentment that he'd been away so long, they'd start fighting, right? And so finally, she didn't know who to turn to, so she went to the local priest of the temple and asked him, what should I do? I'm so mad at my husband all the time. How can I learn to be more patient with him? The priest said something interesting. He said, it's okay to be angry with him. It's okay to get mad at your husband. For people who are not enlightened Buddhas, right, these things, anger, greed, ignorance, these things arise naturally. They naturally come up in our heart. The priest, he said something even more surprising. He said, you know what? Maybe you should be grateful to your husband for making you so mad. She thought, what? That's crazy. He said, well, think about it. If he hadn't made you so mad and so irritated, you wouldn't have come here. You wouldn't have come to the temple to hear the teachings of the Buddha. You wouldn't have been able to hear this message that the Buddha accepts you just as you are. Right? You recognize that you're suffering, and the Buddha is able to show you a path to live with freedom. And so from that point on, Okaru, she was still mad at her husband, but she started to go more often to hear these teachings. And she gradually came to take comfort in the teaching of the Nembutsu and to feel that the temple was the one place where she felt that she was truly accepted just as she was, embraced in the Buddha's compassion. And by receiving that compassion of the Buddha, her own heart became settled and peaceful and joyful in the Nembutsu. And so she started to naturally say Namman Dabutsu, Namman Dabutsu, Namman Dabutsu as she went about her daily life, as she was walking around the village, going to the market, down by the harbor, Namman Dabutsu, Namman Dabutsu, Namman Dabutsu, Namman Dabutsu, all the time. Now, people in this world are often reluctant to let go of their ideas. Once they make up their mind about someone, they don't want to, they're not willing to change it. They just think that person is like that. People don't change. And so people still resented her. And the fact that she was saying Namman Dabutsu all the time, that started to be kind of annoying. Now, she didn't really care about what other people thought. As a young woman, and even more so at this point as she settled into her mature adult life, was really at peace with herself in the Nembutsu. She wouldn't spend a lot of time fixing up her hair or bother about wearing fancy clothes. She was a little bit unkempt and a little bit unusual because she was always saying, Namman Dabutsu, Namman Dabutsu, Namman Dabutsu, Namman Dabutsu. And people would occasionally kind of laugh at her and point at her and make jokes about her, but she didn't pay any attention. She didn't mind it at all. She enjoyed peace of mind in the Nembutsu, knowing that her destination in the world of peace and bliss was settled. And she wrote a beautiful poem that expresses her feeling and her peace in the Nembutsu. She wrote, "Though mocked in this world as a crazy old hag, in the Pure Land, I will be a radiant bride. Kichigae baba to iwashiri shiware mo, yagate jodo no hana yome ni." So in this village of Mutsure where she lived, the May 5th Children's Day celebration, that was the only time of the year that the villagers, the people, were allowed to go out into the harbor and to gather the shellfish, the clams and so forth that were abundant there in the shallow waters. But they were very strict. This was the Edo period. The daimyo, the local feudal lord, was very strict, and everyone knew not to break the rules because they would be punished severely. So everybody waited until May 5th and got really excited because that was the one day at the annual Boys' Day celebration where people would be allowed to go out into the waters to gather their shellfish. So not only did Okaru join her fellow islanders at the beach, she was particularly zealous. She was particularly eager. She had 2 big baskets and she was waiting there right at the edge of the shore, and they would do a little ceremony and they would announce, "Okay, everybody, 1, 2, 3, go!" Everybody would rush out into the water. And Okaru, faster than everyone else, sprinted out into the water and started shoveling shellfish into her baskets. She ran back, and then she ran back out again, filled up a second basket, shoveling as fast as she could, getting as much as she would carry. Now, other people saw her, and remember, these were people who were not very kind, generous to her, and they sort of started laughing at her. "Look at Okaru, all day long, Namman Dabutsu, Namman Dabutsu. She acts like such a good Buddhist, but look at her. Look at how greedy she is. Right? Look at how greedy she is. She's gathering more than her fair share." Right? And crazy old Okaru. And the end of the evening, everyone gathered at their homes, and they had a great feast of shellfish. And you could see in front of everybody's house, they're making miso soup and grilling them, and there was piles and piles of used shells from the clam shells were piling up outside of everyone's house as they enjoyed their feast. And in front of Okaru's house, there were no shells. So people started saying, "Okaru, she's so crazy. She probably doesn't even know she has to take them out of the shell. She's probably just chomping away at the shells, trying to eat them without even cooking them or opening them up. She's nuts," right? And then they just went back to their feasting, and at the end of the night, many families had gathered so many shellfish that they still had some left over. And in order to keep them fresh, they had to go back down to the ocean to get fresh water for the shellfish, to change the water. And so one man from the village walked down to the water, and as he approached the shoreline, he saw there was someone kind of hunched over by the shore. He's like, "What is that person doing?" So he kind of gradually walked up behind him, and he said, "Oh, that's Okaru. What's she doing there? She's mumbling something. She's right there by the water. What is she?" She's mumbling, and she's splashing around. As he drew closer, he saw she was casting shellfish out into the ocean and saying, "Gomen nasai, namman dabutsu, namman dabutsu, gomen nasai." So, I'm so sorry, namman dabutsu, namman dabutsu. I'm so sorry I couldn't save more of your brothers and sisters. I'm sorry I got as many as I could, but you're the only ones I could save. I know you'll be lonely having lost so many friends and family members. Namman dabutsu, namman dabutsu. Go out, be free for another year, live happily. Namman dabutsu, namman dabutsu. So Okaru was the kind of person who lived deeply in this Nembutsu teaching. She received compassion of the Buddha. She recognized that even though the Buddha lived long ago and far away, that the truth taught by the Buddha, the compassion of Amida Buddha was there for her right in that very moment. And she felt so grateful for the kindness that she received that she began to practice kindness and patience for all beings, all people, right? She was patient with the neighbors who would laugh and sneer at her. She was patient with all those boys who had refused to marry her when they were kids. And she was even kind and patient towards those delicious shellfish that could have been her dinner. Right? So when we think about people like this, people like Okaru, people like the wise teachers that we remember today, we awaken this feeling of gratitude and appreciation for all of our fellow travelers. This is the spirit of a service like Etaikyo, like an all lives memorial service, where we come here before Amida Buddha. We receive this boundless compassion that embraces all of us. We hear these words, Namo Amida Butsu, the voice of the Buddha calling to us to take refuge in the light that shines the truth into our hearts, in the life that sustains and supports us, uninterrupted and unresting throughout our days in this world. So I'll conclude the Dharma School message at this time. I invite you to join me in Gassho. Namo Amida Butsu. 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 Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Reverend Adams, for your Dharma School message this morning. Your description of the 3 types of compassion, small, medium, and great, the story of Okaru. When you were describing the different types of compassion and giving some examples, I couldn't help but look over at my kids to see what their reaction was when you asked about what individuals you express small compassion to. And I think when I looked over, it probably looked like I was glaring at them to make sure that they were also considering their parents and their mom. But they do know I love them. So please stand for the singing of the Gatha Namo Amida Butsu, which can be found on page 133 of the service book, and then we'll remain standing for the recitation of the Golden Chain.
Please stand for the. Oh, please turn to page 90 of the service book and recite the golden chain with me. I am a link in Amida's golden chain of love that stretches around the world. I will keep my link bright and strong. I will be kind and gentle to every living thing and protect all who are weaker than myself. I will think pure and beautiful thoughts, say pure and beautiful words, and do pure and beautiful deeds. May every link in Amida's golden chain of love be bright and strong, and may we all attain perfect peace. Namo Amida Butsu. 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 Are there any announcements? I can go back.
I think we have some announcements, but I'll at least start us off. So just a reminder from our Donna Club that we're currently running our winter clothing donation drive. So we're collecting gently used warm clothing items such as jackets, sweaters, sweatshirts, heavy socks, etc. If you want to bring in some donations, you can do so through December 1st. And like in the past, we're partnering with Streets of Hope, an organization with a vision to give hope to those who live on the streets in San Diego.
I just want to thank everyone again for donating to the Thanksgiving food drive. We all sorted it out and donated it to UPAC, so thank you. All right, so on Bodhi Day, on December 1st, 2024, we will be having our burrito fundraiser lunch. You can buy any of these yellow tickets from any junior IBA member. And yeah, it is a $10 donation, and we will be serving delicious burritos served with rice, beans, and more. You can dine in or take out, so we look forward to seeing everyone, and thank you for your support.
Good morning, everybody. Just a reminder that we have the script program still going, so there's a whole list of script, different companies that you're able to purchase, and a little portion goes back to the temple. So please review the list. It's over in the office. Thank you so much.
I know you're just waiting for this announcement. Hi, I'm Margot, the friendly brittle lady. We still have some brittle left to sell, and they're beautifully packaged. So don't go empty-handed to Thanksgiving meal. You know, this will be a good snack. And for those who have orders, we have those ready in the nursery. You can come pick it up. And for the initial people who come and purchase brittle today, in conjunction with the All Life Forms, I have a few calendars from the SPCA that, you know how you get these in the mail and then you feel guilty, so you submit a donation to them. So there's some cute doggy calendars for free. Thank you.
Yes, good morning. Michael Shinzaki, co-founder of the San Diego Pickleball Association, has graciously offered another pickleball lesson at the San Diego Buddhist Temple. The date is Sunday, December the 15th. The time is from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. This is going to be prior to service, and the location is going to be in the indoor annex. Coffee and light refreshments will be provided. Feel free to bring a friend. A new sign-in sheet will be left in the temple office. Please see either myself, Brian Sasaki, or Glenn Torrio for more information. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. I'm Bill. I just wanted to thank everybody who helped us successfully produce a seminar on end-of-life planning yesterday. We had over 60 people in the Annex Hall. They really enjoyed the program. And we will continue this seminar about every 2 months. So there'll be new content and new ways for us to plan our own demise. So it's part of a life well lived to be able to go ahead and plan for things that we do have control over. So thank you all, and we get another chance in about 2 months to attend the seminar. Thank you.
Okay, hello, I'm back again. So, now we have flyers which you can get in the office. Yeah, the front, downstairs, the front office. There are flyers. They look like this. They have a sticker on them that says you can use the code Schmidt for $1 off your ticket. Pre-sale is $15 to pay like at the at the concert or at the performance. It's $20 at the door. It's Saturday, December 7th, 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. It is 28th Annual Pearl Lantern Festival at East Lake High School in the gymnasium in Chula Vista. You can go get a flyer, and then there's a little tiny QR code which you can scan to get tickets, or there's a website, www.pasaka.org/events to order tickets. And then there's a little box that should say like promo code, and you can type Schmidt and get a discount. Thank you.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Making a third announcement about Mochitsuki. 2 weeks from today, we'll be having our annual Mochitsuki, baking of the sweet rice cakes for the new year. And we'll look forward to having everyone come out for a day-long fun event of making mochi for the new year. There won't be a service that day, so we'll look forward to having you come out. Today's the last day to pre-order mochi. Forms are in the back of the hondo and downstairs. $7 for a package of komochi and $10 for the 2-piece kasane for your home obutsudan. There's also a sign-up sheet downstairs for those who are probably new to our Mochitsuki, so you can sign up for shifts downstairs in the office. And so look forward to seeing all of you Dharma School students too, because we'll need your help for the mochi. You have a question, Jaden? Sure you can. You can come out and help Mr. Ralph at 4:30 a.m., okay? But we'll get started probably about from 6 to 6:30 that morning, and be going till about 3. Okay, thank you.
I guess we volunteered to come at 4:30. Well, we have a lot of exciting events. I know there were a lot of announcements, but we have a lot of exciting events coming up even from now through the end of the year. So we'll now have words of appreciation by our Temple Board President, Mr. Curt Yasuhara.
Good morning, and thank you everyone for coming and attending today's service. We really appreciate you attending service and supporting the temple. I would like to thank Reverend Adams for making a trip down here and being our guest speaker today. Reverend Smitty, Reverend Laverne, Sharon Sasaki, and Arturo Rubio for hosting today's service. I'd like to thank Tricia for the wonderful piano accompaniment for our Gathas. And I'd like to thank Reverend for today's AV service, and Kimberly for being our Masters of Ceremony today. Thank you.
So the Dharma School students may now offer incense and are excused to walk to their Dharma School classes. I love seeing all the Dharma School students. So we will now have the chanting of the Vandana Ti Sarana, which can be found on page 96 of the service book. And please join in from the beginning.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Homage to him, the exalted one, the enlightened one, the supremely awakened one. Buddham saranam gacchami, Dhammam saranam gacchami, Sangham saranam gacchami. I go to the Buddha for guidance. I go to the Dharma for guidance. I go to the Sangha for guidance. Namo Kie Butsu. Namo Kie Ho. Namo Kie So. Gasho Namandab, 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 Namandab.
So I would like to invite back up Reverend Adams for a Etaikyo Dharma message.
Namandavats, 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 Please join me in Gasho. Gasho, onegaishimasu. Suppose there are parents with 7 children. When there is sickness among the 7 children, although the father and mother are concerned equally with all of them, nevertheless their hearts lean wholly toward the sick child. It is like this with the Tathagata. It is not that there is no equality among all sentient beings, but his heart leans wholly toward the person who has committed evil. Tatoeba aru mono ni 7人の子がいたとしましょう。その7人の子の中で1人が病気になれば、親の心は平等でないわけがありませんが、その病気の子に特に心をかけるようになものであります。如来もまたその通りです。あらゆる衆生を平等に見ておられますが、罪ある者には特に心をかけてくださるのですと。ナマンダブツ、ナマンダブツ、ナマンダブツ、ナマンダブツ、ナマンダブツ。Once again, good morning. These are words from the Nirvana Sutra quoted by Shinran Shonin in his major work, the Kyogyo Shinsho. And they're particularly meaningful, I feel, for today's Etaikyo service because they express the compassion of the parent for the sick child and the ways in which the Buddha's compassion that we receive is like that compassion. Many who are gathered here today for the Etaikyo service are honoring and remembering parents or grandparents. In our Jodo Shinshu tradition, we recognize that the compassion of the Buddha extends beyond just those that we consider our blood relatives, and we can remember many loved ones from whom we have received the love and care of a father or a mother, not just those who are our biological parents, but it may be friends, coaches, aunts, uncles, co-workers, and mentors. In today's service, I invite you to hold in your heart the gratitude and appreciation you feel for all those who have sustained your life, and particularly our gratitude for those who worked so hard to establish and maintain this temple over the years. In this Etaikyo service, we honor those for whom, in whose honor an Etaikyo donation was made at the time of passing, expressing our appreciation for their wish that this temple will continue to be a place where we can hear the wise words of the Buddha's teachings, where we can take comfort in the Buddha's wisdom in the midst of the challenges and the difficulties that we face in our lives. In our Jodo Shinshu tradition, this practice of cherishing our connection with those family and friends, those Dharma pioneers who have come before, this is modeled for us in the family of Shinran Shonin himself, the founder of our tradition. And we look particularly to his wife, Eshini, and their daughter, Kakushini, who laid so much of the important groundwork both for our kind of institution of Jodo Shinshu, but also these practices of remembrances that we observe. So often when we see images of Shinran Shonin, he's depicted, perhaps you've seen him, he has the large okasa hat, that's like a big round hat that goes all the way out to the shoulders and is carrying a staff in his hand. Often if you see an image of Shinran Shonin, a statue like that, it's immediately recognized as Shinran Shonin, the founder of our Jodo Shinshu tradition. And that's because he was distinctive in his practice, in that he did not seclude himself far away in the mountains, but rather he was a traveler. He was traveling from place to place. He was born and spent much of his early life in the area around Kyoto and Mount Hiei. Then he was sent into exile out into Echigo, what's now Niigata Prefecture. And then later in life, he traveled to the Kanto area, what's now the kind of Tokyo region. and then finally returning to Kyoto in his later years. So he traveled really all over Japan, sharing the Dharma, and that journey of his life we can also see in the journey of the lives of those who brought the teaching, the Nembutsu teaching, here to San Diego, and whose dedication enables us to hear these teachings today. One of the interesting things about Shinran Shonin is that when he traveled, he didn't travel alone. He wasn't a solitary traveler, but rather he was a family traveler. He had, there's a little bit of a scholarly debate about his family, but it's generally recognized that he had at least 3 daughters and 3 sons, so family of 6. And often, when he was traveling with his family together. And I think as we remember our loved ones for today's Etaikyo service, perhaps you can recall a trip that you took with them at some point in your life. Maybe it was a family vacation. I know my mom's family growing up, they didn't really take vacations, but they would travel to see family members. They would go to visit family. But oftentimes we have opportunities to travel. Sometimes we're forced to travel, as many of our Sangha members here in the Buddhist Churches of America were forced to leave their homes and travel into the incarceration camps during the Second World War. There are all kinds of journeys that we do, but traveling as a family is a unique experience. And it's one in which we really have to look out for and take care of one another. For myself, as Smitty Sensei shared earlier, I have 3 children, and in many ways, they're finally getting a little bit easier to travel with. Coming here to San Diego, it's been 10 years since the last time I was here in San Diego, and the way that I kind of remember that, when people say, when was the last time you were here? I was thinking, well, let's see. I was here with my kids. How old were they, right? Well, I know, let's see, our oldest went to Legoland, and that was the first time he got a Lego set. And so I think he must have been about 3. And I remember our middle one was in a stroller, and he was about 1 at that time. And now he's going to be 11 in a couple weeks. So it was about 10 years ago. And so coming here now, flying into San Diego airport, just being here for me brings back a lot of those memories of traveling with my kids when they were really small, and remembering both the fun times and some of the challenges that we have traveling. So when our 3rd son was born, then things became, even more of a sort of adventure, traveling together. And even a very short journey with small children can be very difficult. I remember when our first son was born, he hated to be strapped into the car seat so much that for the first 6 months or so, we didn't want to travel anywhere more than 5 minutes from our house. We were thinking, we lived in Oxnard. It's like, we have to go to a meeting in Ventura. Oh, okay. We're going to brace ourselves for this 15-minute car ride, because we knew he would be screaming the whole 15 minutes, pushing against the back of the car seat. Our second son was fine in the car, but our 3rd son was a little bit of it was kind of a, hit or miss how he would be. And I remember one trip driving back with the family from a gathering with ministers and their families. We all went over to Berkeley to get together with the other ministers around our age and their kids at the Jodo Shinshu Center. And I remember coming back in the evening, driving across the San Francisco Bay. So we live in San Mateo, which is on the west side of the bay, south of San Francisco. Berkeley's on the east side, and so we had to go across the San Francisco Bay Bridge, where there's really like no place to stop or rest. But I remember we strapped him into the car seat, and immediately, before we even out of Berkeley, he started screaming. Our youngest was just screaming. The older 2 were in the very back seat. We have like a 3-row minivan, 2 captain's chairs, and my wife was in the captain's chair next to the baby, kind of reaching over, trying to comfort him, across that gap between the 2 captain's chairs. And he just screamed all the way across the bridge, right? Through Treasure Island, through the city, down the peninsula until we got home. And as soon as we pulled into the driveway, my wife said, attach that middle seat So there's we have a Sienna, and there's a tiny little middle seat that they give you when you buy the car, but you almost never use it because it's about this wide. It's about 8 inches wide. It's incredibly uncomfortable. And when you have little kids going into the very back seat, it's a real pain to kind of navigate around it. So it's, it's like, why do we even have this? But then my wife said, strap that in. And I put it in, and she said, "Kore ni suwaritakute tamaranakatta." She said, I wanted to sit in this chair so badly I couldn't stand it, because she would be closer to the child. It would be easier to comfort him and nurture him. And sure enough, the next time we went for a long car ride, she was there next to him. He could feel her being close to him, and he was calm and peaceful. And this, to me, this is when we talk about the heart of the parent that is expressed in the heart of the Buddha. This is the kind of heart that, for a parent, that seat, which normally is the most uncomfortable seat, no one wants to sit in it. You just leave it in the garage because you don't want it. But for the parent who wants to be close to comfort their child, that's the ideal seat. The best seat becomes the seat that was the worst seat. So the worst seat that then in our hearts becomes the best seat. And this is the compassionate heart of the Buddha, the heart that wishes more than anything to bring comfort to those who are facing difficulty, to provide guidance for those who have lost their way. And it's interesting because this isn't just limited to parents and children, but our middle son, who is our most rambunctious, he's like the water polo player in the family, he is also, in many ways, the most nurturing and caring for his younger brother. I remember at that time, he used to play this Japanese game, Inai Inai Ba, which is like peekaboo. And you go, Inai Inai, Ba! And then, the little baby is like, where's my parent, where's my parent? They say, oh, there they are. They kind of giggle and laugh. And he thought that was so fun, but he thought it was so fun that he wanted to do it again and again in rapid succession. So instead of going, Inai Inai, kind of building up the suspense, Ba! He would go, Inai Inai, Ba! Inai Inai, Ba! Inai Inai, Ba! Just back and forth like a machine gun. The baby thought it was great. He's like, ah! But he had that care and that kindness. And then his older brother, who was 2.5 years older, would see them playing this game, and he'd say, "Oh, I want to join too." And Doma would sort of poke his head, and someone would say, "No, you get away! I'm going to smash your head and put you in jail." Right? Because he has that kind of that sibling thing, but it's just instantly, right? So we don't have that equally for all beings. We're human beings, right? It's like, my little brother, I love him, I care for him. My older brother, oh, so annoying, get away, right? So this is the heart of a human being, a little bit different from the heart of the Buddha. But so when I reflect upon my own experiences traveling with my kids, the joys and many times the difficulties and frustrations, then I think about Shinran Shonin's experience, about the experience of the loved ones that we remember today in this Etaikyo service. Traveling with kids has gotten a lot easier than it used to be. Shinran Shonin, in his days, they traveled by foot. He traveled by foot, not for fun, not to go to Legoland, not to go to the zoo, but to share the Dharma. Those who established this temple, they made great and difficult journeys. And the culmination of their efforts was that we are able to have this place to hear the Dharma today, in this place. Shinran Shonin, he received the compassionate heart of the Buddha in the Nembutsu. But I believe that his appreciation, his way of understanding and savoring the compassion of the Buddha was deeply informed by his experience as a parent, his experience traveling with his children. When I see Shinran Shonin in those traveling clothes, I feel that he has made that journey just for me so that I can encounter and appreciate this Nembutsu teaching. So Shinran Shonin, he was a caregiver, of course, as a father. He took care of his children. And, I think we have this image of, in those days men didn't change diapers and so forth. But I don't think that's true. I think that if you look at the records, we know that the descendant Denyo Shonin, that he did we have a record of him washing diapers. It says, Shinran no Shonin talks about how he used to wash diapers because they were so poor they couldn't afford someone to wash the diapers for them. And so I believe that this was also the case with Shinran Shonin, that when he traveled with his family, he was helping out. He was caring for his children. One of the ways in which we get a picture of Shinran Shonin in his Dharma path is through the letters that were passed down, written by Eshini, his wife, to their daughter Kakushini. And many of these letters are rich in Buddhist meaning. She doesn't go into a long, in-depth lecture on the meaning of the Buddha's teachings, but rather she expresses how Shinran Shonin lived his life as a person inspired by the Nembutsu. She describes one letter, which just as we often do as parents, we think about, how old was my kid when that happened? That must be when it was. She says, it must have been that year because I remember that our son was 4 years old. We were traveling on a journey, and she recalls how, as they were traveling, Shinran Shonin suddenly fell ill. He became very sick, and they had to stop their journey and pause and rest and wait for him to recover. And in the midst of his illness, she describes about how he was so hot, it was like he was hot to the touch, his fever. It's very, in these days, they didn't have thermometers, they didn't have, Tylenol or things like that, and so, the fever just had to run its course, and he was so hot, she describes, it's like he was hot to the touch. He was so hot, and he was just lying there, and very still, and she describes how she heard him kind of speaking, and he said, so that's how it will be. And initially she thought, is he delirious? Is he mumbling? He just spoke softly to himself, but she heard it. And so she asked him, are you okay? What's happening? What did you have? And he went on to describe, he said, when I first became ill in this moment, I set about to recite the 3 Pure Land Sutras in my heart, in my mind, to recite them 1,000 times for the benefit of all beings. So he had this sense of, I don't know, this may be my last act in this world. And so what can I do with this last moment of my life? I will recite the 3 Pure Land Sutras for the benefit of all beings. Right? I think about myself, if I was on a trip and I started to get sick, I wouldn't immediately think, what can I do for the benefit of all beings? I would think, where's the nearest pharmacy, right? Where can I get my Tylenol? Is there a place around here that takes my medical insurance, right? But Shinran Shonin, having lived this life of the Nembutsu, immediately he thought, what can I do for the benefit of all beings? And then he recalls an occasion in the past. He says, I remembered once in the past, similar thing had happened. That time too, I set about recalling the sutras, and I recited them so clearly that whether my eyes were open or closed, I could see every character right in front of me as if I was looking at the page, right? So he knew the sutra. It was kind of burned into his mind. And he said, as I went deep into this, I realized this is my own self-power. This is me thinking that somehow I can accomplish the liberation of all beings on my own, when in reality, the liberation of all beings comes from the compassion of Amida Buddha. It's the Buddha's vast virtue that goes beyond what my limited human heart and mind are capable of. It's that compassion that truly liberates all beings. And so, all that is necessary is simply Namo Amida Butsu, the Nembutsu, these simple words. And when I realized that, that's when I said, yes, this is how it shall be. So Shinran Shonin had this deep shift in perspective, receiving the care of his wife. I mean, think about it. They've got 6 kids, they're traveling, he's 6, so not only is she taking care of this 4-year-old, which in those days, a 4-year-old was actually 3 by our way of counting. So she's got the terrific 3s tearing around there, and she's caring for her sick husband. So Shinran then, with awareness of this care and kindness he receives, also awakening to the kindness of the Buddha. this shift in perspective that's really at the heart of our Nembutsu teaching. And this is possible because of the kind and care support of his companions, who he truly appreciated, those like Kakushini. Kakushini, she was an excellent listener. She was right there, paying attention, seeing to his needs. In the midst of everything else she had to do, she knew that that person who is gravely ill, they're the one who needs that attention. And so for those who live deeply in the Nembutsu, this truth, this heart of the Buddha, we naturally, spontaneously receive this way of living. In Eshini's mind, she saw Shinran Shonin as the embodiment of the Bodhisattva of compassion. She describes that in one of her letters. Shinran Shonin, too, describes how in his early life, when he was first setting out on the Dharma path, he had a vision in which the Bodhisattva of compassion, Avalokiteshvara Kannon Bosatsu, appeared to him and assured him that if he were to marry, that his wife would be, the Kannon, the Bodhisattva would take the form of his wife and guide him throughout his life to the Pure Land. So they had this kind of relationship where they appreciated one another as the expression of true compassion. And so as we reflect upon their lives on this occasion of Etaikyo, we also reflect upon the kindness that we've received from those with whom we've journeyed through this life together, and those who we haven't had the opportunity to meet, but whose efforts have made it possible for us to encounter this Nembutsu teaching. And then in this way, we're able to awaken this deep appreciation for Amida Buddha, Shinran Shonin describes as our compassionate father and mother. In these days, we sometimes kind of question this, language of, the masculine father and the feminine mother and so forth, but I think it's important to understand that the truth that this expresses goes beyond our conventional ways of thinking about gender or, biological family relationships. It's moment to moment in our lives, we are receiving that kindness and compassion from countless beings, those we remember today and those we've never met, but whose lives embody and bring us into this deep karmic connection with the Nembutsu teaching, which guides us and comforts us on this occasion. So in conclusion, I'd like to return once again to these words of the Nirvana Sutra, these words which express this great compassion that we receive from the Buddha and this comfort that we can take in knowing that we are embraced just as we are in the boundless compassion of Amida Buddha. Suppose there are parents with 7 children. When there is sickness among the 7 children, although the father and mother are concerned equally with all of them, nevertheless their hearts lean wholly toward the sick child. It is like this with the Tathagata, the Buddha. It is not that there is no equality among all sentient beings, but his heart leans wholly toward the person who has committed evil. Namo Amida Butsu. 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 Namo.
Thank you, Adam Sensei, for your Dharma talk this morning. Well, 2 Dharma talks this morning, and both the initial and closing meditation or recitation was really like a great reminder to me, especially it reminds me of the loving kindness meditation and reminding us that to be kind to all beings. Like ourselves included, our teachers, but all those that we also don't know as well. Please stand and turn to page 128 of the service book. We will be singing the Gatha Ondokusan II. Please be seated. We will now have the closing meditation accompanied by music played by Ms. Trisha Carino. Please join me in placing our hands together in Gassho. Just practice good, do good for others without thinking of making yourself known so that you may gain reward. Really bring benefit to others, gaining nothing for yourself. This is the primary requisite for breaking free of attachment to self. Dogen Zenji. Please place your palms together. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namandas. So thank you again to Reverend Smitty for officiating this morning's service, and to Reverend Laverne for co-officiating. Thank you to Reverend Henry Adams for traveling down here to San Diego and for the wonderful Dharma messages. And thank you, Ms. Trisha. I always enjoy hearing the beautiful music throughout our Sunday services. Thank you to Arturo Rubio for bringing the Kansho, and to Brevin and Ken for streaming this morning's service. And thank you all for joining us this morning, both in person and online. And thank you for bearing with me, as speaking into the microphone and in front of people is not my strong suit. And I wish everyone a wonderful Thanksgiving, whether you have plans with family or friends, or even just a quiet day. At this time, I'd like to invite everyone to come up and offer incense. Place your hands together in Gassho, and then hospitality will be downstairs in the dining room, just one floor below where we are now. Thank you.